Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends on what part of the world you're in. Welcome to our webinar discussing Kentucky. We'll give folks maybe another 30 seconds to come in as people are logging in. Good to see you all. Good to see some familiar faces as well, and some new faces. Great. I see folks covering every time zone, at least in the United States. That's great. I'm not seeing our international friends just yet, but they may be joining us. Oh, Spain. Hey, all right. Anita, welcome. Bienvenido. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? We'll get going here. We have an hour with our friends from Kentucky, but before we get started there, let's see who else is joining us. So if you don't mind sharing your name, your role, who you serve with, where in the world you might be joining us from, and let's just see who's here. Please do introduce yourselves, and then our friends from Kentucky, I'll give the opportunity to introduce yourself as well here in a second. Roman coming in from Oregon, okay, instead of California. Hey, Hector. Mark from Bethlehem, wonderful. Michigan, Arkansas, Virginia. I see you. Excellent. Florida, more Kentucky friends. Hey, Allison from New York. Great. Thank you for sharing. Well, let's go ahead and get started here. Just to, if you don't, making sure I'm on the right spot. If you if you don't mind going back, Jasmine, one slide. Just want to make sure we're in the same headspace. We're here essentially to ensure that we're learning from one another. Please bring those good intentions, those learning mindsets. Please know that we're here to learn and have a good time with one another, and especially in the breakout sessions, we'll really engage and open up in dialogue. If you don't mind advancing here. For those that don't know me, I'm Virgil Hammonds, the CEO of the Aurora Institute, but you might have seen on social that we're really excited that we are unifying forces with the Learning Accelerator, which is a partner and organization that has been doing a lot of meaningful and incredible work that embodies our mission, our vision, and very similar core values. And we're excited to partner and think boldly about how we can best serve and amplify the really great work that each of you are doing. But more on that to come here in the very near future. And many of our new colleagues from the Learning Accelerator are here joining us as well. So we're jazzed about that. A little bit about the Aurora Institute, though, and our vision. We envision a world where all people are empowered to attain the knowledge, skills, and dispositions necessary to achieve success, contribute to their communities, and advance society. And I read that because when I think about Kentucky and the great work that's been happening in Kentucky, a lot of what is represented there is represented in our vision and lives in reality in Kentucky. So I'm really excited to share some really great work that three of our learning communities are here to share in a really great way. I don't mind advancing there, Jasmine. So for Aurora, we also want to acknowledge that this virtual webinar takes place on lands that have been home to Indigenous people since time immemorial. By focusing on the whole child, real-world application, and learning in context, competency-based ed uses similar principles to traditional Indigenous education. Whether intentional or not in the initial design, we acknowledge that CBE ideas reflect traditional Indigenous education approaches that long predate CBE. We want to take a moment to honor the ancestral grounds that we are collectively gathered upon and support the resilience and strength that Indigenous people have shown worldwide. Specifically, we reflect on the impact of colonization of Indigenous peoples through education systems that marginalize and suppress their traditional knowledge systems and way of being. I'm coming to you today from the land of the Cheyenne tribe, whose territory encompasses what is known today as Bailey, Colorado. I am not in my traditional home of Maine and the Wabanaki Nation. Thanks. So just a bit before we get into our Kentucky friends. Oh, geez, speaking of our Kentucky friends, hold on. I missed a step here, so forgive me. I want to go back just a little bit and make sure that I'm giving some space so you can see who they are. So Justin and Sarah of Beechwood, do you mind? Let's start, Justin, with you. If you'd mind coming on and just introducing yourself and your role in Beechwood. And I've also asked them to share if we're ever in their learning community, what's something that we could enjoy in their part of Kentucky.
Justin Kaiser. I was the principal of the high school for several years as we started to build the program. Then became from principal to director of operations, and then just in the past, I think 2 weeks or so, was named superintendent of the school district. So quite a few roles in the sequence of the past few years, but all kind of surrounded by this EDGE program that we're doing here at Beechwood. So very excited and fortunate to be a part of it. I'm sorry, what was the question you asked about the region, and if
Yeah,
someone
if we're in Beechwood County, what should we see or do or experience?
Yeah, if you're in Beechwood, small school, small little district in, you talking about the school or the area, the region?
The area, whatever comes to mind for
Okay,
you.
gotcha. We're like, most people think you hear Kentucky. The rest of Kentucky probably doesn't consider us Kentucky because we're so far north. We're probably about 6 minutes. If you were to leave our school right now and get on we 6 minutes, we'd be downtown Cincinnati. So we are right across the river. And in this area of Kentucky, there's really great food, really great culture. It's not too far away from, in 20 minutes you can be in the country, and in 10 minutes you can be right in the heart of the urban center of Cincinnati. So a lot of variation in this region.
Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, Justin. Sarah.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Sarah Schobel. So I'm at Beechwood with Justin. I was his assistant principal when we were in the high school. 7th through 12th grade is our high school. And then now I'm our director of curriculum and love it. Since Justin went the Cincinnati route, and he's right, we've got a blend of both. I'll go the Kentucky route, and I'm probably stealing others' answers. But if you visit Kentucky, you have to visit some of the distilleries known for bourbon. Even if you're not a bourbon person, they are just some beautiful, beautiful places to visit, and some really neat experiences to learn about as you go through the process.
Thank you, Sarah. If there were a competency for bourbon, I'd be into that micro-credential in some way, exploring that opportunity. Thank you both. Appreciate you. From Metcalfe, we have Jenny joining us. Welcome, Jenny.
Welcome. My name is Jenny Stotts. I'm the principal at Metcalfe County Middle School. And if you're in our area, I would visit the Great Lakes that we have, Barren River Lake, Green River Lake. It's just a beautiful area to enjoy the slow way of life. So yes.
Thank you, Jenny. And having been to Metcalfe, I would second that. Appreciate you, Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you.
And from Woodford, let's start with Scott.
Hello, thanks for inviting us in. We're happy to be here. My name is Scott Hundley. I am the coordinator of curriculum instruction and assessment here in our county. We are excited for this work. We've really enjoyed doing this and excited to share it with the group today. Something in our county that obviously she stole the bourbon one from us. Woodford Reserve. We are in Woodford County, so that is ours. But we also are in the middle of horse country. So if you have ever watched the Derby, Windstar Farm, all of those farms that often send Derby participants come from right in this area. So I would encourage to maybe stop by one of the farms. Those are pretty neat.
Thank you, Scott. It is beautiful to see just the fences lining the properties. It's incredible. Susan. Morning.
Hi, Susan Tracy, Director of Student Achievement here in Woodford County. And I'll piggyback on Scott with the being right here in Central Kentucky in horse country. We border Fayette County, which is Lexington, and the Keeneland racetrack is right there. And it's beautiful, and it's an event in itself in the fall and the spring. So it's a must-see if you're here in those times of the year.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for the introductions. Thank you all for sharing your wisdom and also for leaning into boldly serving young people and families in really inspiring ways. And we're going to get to that. Let's get to that. So at the Aurora Institute and also at the Learning Accelerator, we have been doing a lot of research on best practices, what is working, what are some opportunities that learning communities should consider and learn from others upon. And so we actually have partnered with Kentucky to really explore their deeper learning initiatives and really think about what that looks like systemically. And so our 3 learning communities here represented have taken some significant steps forward in making this possible. So we have conducted an initial research study and want to share some of those findings, if you don't mind advancing the slide here. Thank you. And in that research, we identified 4 meta themes. One, real strong connection to a shared vision that was co-designed and co-created with the community, really leaning into what are those measures of value that exist within our context. You'll hear more about that from our 3 learning communities. Also, a very clear and intentional focus on what are the expectations for learning, both on the academic end, but also on the social end as well. What do we believe to be important? What are those knowledge, skills, and dispositions that we think are critical? And advancing to that 3rd meta theme, like how do we help learners demonstrate that new knowledge, and how do we help them to apply that learning in deep, meaningful, empowering and inspiring ways in partnership, not just with our heroic educators, but also with our community. How do we do that in concert and with greater intentionality? And then when thinking about these items systemically, what does this mean for us as educators? What does this mean? How do we support learning communities, educators within these learning communities in similar ways, hyper-personalized, meeting them where they are, being able to support progress, being able to validate learning experiences, even on the professional end as well. If you don't mind advancing, please. So in respect to, I'm going to kind of glaze over some examples here because I really want to get to our learning communities, and we'll do some breakout sessions. So as I'm giving kind of a very brief overview of some of the work that's been done in each of the 3 learning communities, listen for some key ideas that perhaps you want to explore a bit further in their breakout sessions. For example, in Metcalfe and Woodford counties, they utilize the Deeper Learning Grant, which we'll talk more about here in a bit, to establish that community profile of a learner, really thinking about like, what are those competencies again on the academic, social, and that we want to ensure that our learners are able to leave here with, but also thinking about how you develop those competencies from pre-K through 12. And at Beechwood County, there was really a focus on like, what does that look like in a variety of contexts, right? What does that look like in partnership with community? And each of these learning communities really focused on like what, how, and why, helping people to understand the how, what, and why of this process and how to build and make this vision a reality on a day-to-day basis. If you don't mind advancing to the next, please. In respect to these expectations for learning, as you might not know, but in Kentucky, there was a real state initiative and commitment to make a vibrant learning and community design process, which they called United We Learn. And the whole idea was to create opportunities in policy and through significant resources to allow each learning community to design bold aspirational learning experiences within their own context, recognizing that there are strengths that exist within and vibrancy that exists within each community that each learning community can lean on to co-design in partnership with families, workforce, and various community partners. I think the big thing to think about when establishing these competencies and what came out in the research was like, it's not just about going through the process of a profile, or going through the process of establishing competencies, or going through the process of establishing rubrics tied to those competencies. Like, how do we do that in ways that make sense for our community? And so if you were to listen to each one of these three learning communities, they all took a different path, right? It's similar to our young people in our classrooms. They leaned into their strengths. They established identified those opportunities for improvement, and did so in partnership with a variety of partners. If you don't mind going to the next one, please. What you'll hear from each of these learning communities is a strong focus on defenses of learning, right? At Metcalfe County Middle School, there's a real focus on, like, oh my goodness, if we're developing these competencies and our learners are far surpassing those, like, what might it look like if we're actually to bring in the community to have them validate those learning experiences, or more boldly have learners partner with those community partners to think about how they can apply their learning in those contexts. And the next, please. And of course, with all of this significant work, we're not just transforming the paradigm of the learning experiences for young people, but we're also doing so for educators as well. And so some experiences you might hear about in Woodford is the idea to really think about those competencies found within their portrait and profile of a learner as a teacher. Like, what could this look like in our classrooms, in our learning designs, in our instructional designs and assessment designs? What might this look like? And in Woodford, they also identified a deeper learning academy for educators, really validating their understanding of what it means to apply these competencies in a diverse set of learning environments. So I gave a very brief overview in respect to what this actually looks like. So we're going to invite you actually to join one of the breakout sessions, either with Beechwood in group 1, or Metcalfe in group 2, or Woodford in group 3, to learn more about their experience, to share their journey, their wins, the things they're really proud of, while also acknowledging the things that they're working towards, right? Things that they're still designing around. And so much like a conference, we encourage you to join, ask questions, listen intently. And if there's an opportunity to toggle between breakout groups, we certainly will help you to do that as well. Welcome back, everybody. So we'll use this opportunity to share some key takeaways, and we'll start with Beechwood here. Was there someone that was identified, or Ray, are you going to jump in?
No, when I asked for volunteers, I got that awkward stare down, and so I volunteered as tribute. We had a great discussion. Justin and Sarah shared some really great information about the work they're doing at Beechwood with the EDGE program. Notably, the work that they do really centers on core concepts that they identified after 3 years of research that are listed there. For some of you, that might be considered durable skills or soft skills, but this is really embedded throughout all of the work that they're doing, especially around challenge-based learning. And some of the threads that came out in our discussion was that it's really important to infuse these core concepts throughout the learning process, and to provide opportunities for regular feedback so that students are able to continue to grow these skills as they're engaging in not only challenge-based learning, but in the other work that they're doing throughout their schooling process. And the big takeaway, at least for me, was that collaborating with communities and partners is essential to not only building buy-in for, this is a model that works, this is a vision for learning that we want to make sure students have access to, but it also just supports overall growth of the model. They were speaking to the fact that their Board of Education and some of their partners contribute financially to their model to help continue its sustainability and growth outward, and that wouldn't be possible without really direct communication and collaboration. If I missed anything, anybody can feel free to jump in.
And from the Beechwood team, anything that you want to emphasize as well to the whole group?
I would say those that were in the breakout, or anyone interested, We have plenty of visitors that come to see our space and how the space ties to the curriculum and how the curriculum ties to the community and that vibrant learning. So we're open to anyone wanting to come to learn more. Our doors are open.
Appreciate it, Justin. And I think the one piece that always gets me about your learning community is also the very intentional time you've set to reach out to community partners. I think you said over 100 community partners that are tied into your curriculum and your pathways that you have set, and also the designing buildings to match your learning designs as well is just incredible. Really great. Any questions real quick? I'm sorry, before going to Metcalfe, any questions that came up from based on what Ray and Justin shared for Beechwood? Just open it up to the whole group. And thank you, Sarah, for sharing slides and chat that you shared in the breakout room. Appreciate that. Great. Jenny at Metcalfe. Who's presenting for Metcalfe?
I'll jump in. I gave folks approximately 0.2 seconds to volunteer, so I will share for this group. So Jenny shared kind of the story of the change at Metcalfe County Middle School when she became the leader, and a major catalyst for change was seeing some outcomes data for students that was not what they wanted or believed kids were capable of. And so they identified a need to really increase engagement among students. And PBL and CBE were really the vehicle towards that goal. So making sure that students were really focused on their mastery, focused on what they knew, how they were able to apply that, and then also what they did not know yet, and really bringing in, members of the community and different folks to help facilitate some of that learning. In our group, there's a lot of interest in the idea of how Metcalfe County was able to utilize and weave PBL into existing curriculum. And so Jenny shared a lot of examples around how folks or students were able to use, for example, like books that they used in curriculums. I believe it was the Long Walk to Water, and how students did projects around fundraising to help support the building of wells in third world countries, whether it was organizing, sport games to raise money, whether it was organizing a walk to raise awareness, just lots of different ways that students could feel really engaged in that, motivated to support and build upon the learning from the curriculums. And then another question that came through was, how was Jenny able to get teachers to buy into the different approaches and the changes, particularly when she entered the school? There was a lot more kind of sit and get type instruction. And so the change from where they started to where they are now, one approach was identifying 2 teachers who are already really bought into this process and utilizing these practices, almost having them serve as like an implementation champion. So these were folks that she was able to support them in their development and having them come back to staff to say, hey, here's why we believe in this. Here is how we're doing it in our classroom, and really using them as the lever to show staff that this works. It's important for our students, and this is how you can do it from that teacher level to really increase buy-in. Jenny, what would you add? There was a lot of great stuff that you shared.
I think you did a great job, Ashley, but if I wanted to share more, just how we have taken from standards-based grading to increase the practice of CBE. And that's been a big changeover where we're not just reporting to parents what a 1, 2, or 3 level that they received on a standard. Instead, we're actually looking at what they have not learned yet, what they need to learn, and what they've already learned within their priority standards. So that's something that we've been really focused on at the middle school this past year.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Jenny. And Jenny, just a question to put you might have shared this in the breakout room as I was hopping in between. So if you don't mind sharing with the whole group, and having visited Metcalfe, there is a strong commitment to community development, the community being all in on this. I really love how your educators and school leaders are also deeply committed to making this vision a reality. And at Metcalfe County Middle, like many learning communities across the country, there's always a sprinter that sprints out of the gate, right? And says, like, we can do things differently and we can do it now. Like, how has your work inspired what's going on at the lower and upper levels?
Well, they have been observing like our defenses. They have seen that we've been doing our presentations of learning, and they're starting to see that, you know, our kids are actually excited about being here. We have the best attendance rate within the district. So I think that that goes back to that engagement piece and allowing our kids to have that voice and choice. And then they're just excited about being here at the middle school. So that's something that they're starting to see and want to develop more within their own schools.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And last and certainly not least, Woodford. Scott and Susan, who's presenting for the Woodford team?
I'll be presenting. This is Jim Sue. So at Woodford, something that they did was they collaboratively designed the portrait of a learner. They had teachers, they had a working group so that they were able to contribute. And something that they really needed to do and they recognized was that they needed to get people to be just familiar with the portrait. And so they did some really fun things. They created hand signals for each of their 5 values. And so we had a video where elementary kids were actually doing it and as a call and response. Their social media team also did a really good job of highlighting like different concrete examples their students were doing and tying it directly to the skills and even having the icons to help communities, student members, and staff see the connection between the work. They used the portrait as a guiding tool and then created a series of pathways, including community engagement, project-based learning, and more. And then I think something that they did was really smart was they then figured out like, here's our plan, like our strategic plan. So by 2027 to 2028 school year, here's how we're going to get there. And here are all the intermediate steps all the way. They recognize this is a work in progress and this isn't going to happen tomorrow. And so here are areas that we're going to double down on. So like they recognize like they had their student exhibitions and they're like, they went well for the first year, but we know that there are steps that we need to build on for subsequent years and how we can strengthen them even further. I'll open it up to the Woodford team to think if there's anything else that I missed.
Yeah, I mean, you covered it really well. I think one of the things that our district has done really well is we were not heavy-handed in the approach to give it to our staff. And so we allowed them to explore it to start. And then as we started getting them into it and got buy-in, we started to add expectations and those sort of things. And then, you know, one of the things that we also talked about is just the green light with our administrators. We allowed for a green light culture, which means, hey, give it a try, right? We're giving you that chance to give it a try. If it doesn't work, then we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll try something different. But explore, experiment, see what you can see what creative ways we can get this going.
Thank you, team, for sharing. I think one of the, Scott, building on that, one of the folks that attended your session said, love the idea of explore, don't ignore, right? It's like, we're really putting this into action. And the idea of helping that portrait come to life in instructional design and engagement strategies on the regular, doing that systemically. Yeah, I could see that having a real profound impact, right? Like instead of that being a poster that exists on our office walls, but one that lives in reality within our instruction and learning design, it makes a ton of sense. We'll be certain to include, it seems like the learning communities have already started to share their slide decks so others can take a look, and this webinar certainly will be available to you. And I believe we can include the breakout session so you can see those if you haven't, if you weren't able to participate in the other two or didn't jump around. But please, if just a final piece of feedback, if there's something a takeaway that you had, if you can include it in the chat, something that you're really excited about, something that you want to try, or something you want to reach out to our 3 learning communities about to learn more. You've already started to do that, but please do include it here. But we appreciate you joining the webinar. Thank you so much to our 3 learning communities and to our facilitators for sharing the wisdom and the experiences that you've had. As always, like any great educator and learner, we get better with your feedback. So if you don't mind, please sharing that with us. And we encourage you all to join us in New Orleans in October as we continue to learn from these 3 learning communities and hundreds of others that are really thinking differently and boldly about how we serve and support young people, families, and communities at large. So registration's open. We'd love to have you share your wisdom, have you share your experiences. It's quite the event for those that have not been. If you'd like to learn more, happy to reach out. Thanks all for joining. Enjoy your well-deserved summer. And again, you can contact us anyway here. But thank you. Appreciate you.